Hey gang, welcome to another episode of The Vintage Newbie. I'm your host, The Vintage Newbie. Now, I know what you're thinking out there. What's he gonna do? Talk about his Ninja Turtle Halloween special that he did the cover for comic again? No, not at all. I'm not gonna talk about this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures Halloween special cover C that I drew the cover for. I mean, that thing came out almost a month ago. Sure, it's still in shops now. Probably will be for like another week or so. And even if your store's sold out or didn't even carry it at all for whatever reason, I mean, you could, if you wanted to, look for it online. Just go to Google. You're here on the internet already. Go to eBay. Go to, big comic shops like Graham Cracker Comics, Third Eye Comics, Forbidden Planet, Things from Another World, Midtown Comics, stuff like that. Or even just have your local shop order it and have them get it for you. I'm not here to tell you about any of that. That's kind of done. We've moved past that. We've done that enough. So put your mind at ease, okay? That being said, let's kick the intro so we can get to today's story. Ba-na!
He got into vintage audio a year ago, but there's a lot of things he still doesn't know, so he started up a channel on YouTube, and here he is now, the Vintage Newbie.
Alright, gang. Like I said, welcome to another episode of The Vintage Newbie. My name is Vernon Smith, aka The Vintage Newbie. If you're newbie here, welcome aboard. If you're not so newbie here, welcome back. If you like this kind of content, go ahead and hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Or don't. See what the algorithm does with that. Alright, let's get right into it, shall we? So in a previous episode, I talked about places to get vintage audio, and one of them was thrift stores. Well, guess what? The other day, I took my daughter to one of the local thrift stores here, and it's one that kind of carries some good audio equipment every now and then. She's got a Yamaha cassette deck that I got there sometime back. It's one of those, like late 90s, early 2000s, the black plastic ones, but it actually has like a metal faceplate to it, so that's cool. And it's a Yamaha, so those are usually pretty good. Let's see. I know a buddy of mine once sent me like a picture of a reel-to-reel tape machine that they had there, which those are normally a few $100, and this one was like $40, but didn't have the money at the time, so I was like, nah. Plus, where am I gonna put it? I've also seen, I don't know, there was another time I saw like a silver-faced modular component system cassette deck, and I went back a few days later whenever like the electronics normally half off, and it was gone. So, oh well. But yeah, so we were there. She was going to go doing some clothing shopping. She likes getting some retro vintage gear, attire sometimes. And yeah, I think my wife was on like, because she works from home, and was on like a work call, and who gives a shit, whatever. So we were there, and she goes off in her way. I go off on mine, hitting the electronics section. Normally, it's just like $5-10 shitty DVD players and what have you. But sometimes, like I said, there's some cool occasional gear. This time they had a couple of like mid high end kind of stuff, like some Sony stuff, and I forget what else, but I guess it was good stuff because they were charging around like $70, $80, $90 for a couple of different receivers that they had there, which even whenever they do have receivers, I've seen them for like $30, $40. So whatevs, but not really anything to my liking. I did hit the speaker section, not much there to write home about, so I didn't. But I did see a pair of these KLH bookshelf speakers. Not like the ones that they had like back in the 60s, because I never owned a pair of those, but I have seen people talking about how great KLH speakers were, and then apparently they got doo-doo in the 90s or something. I don't know. But, you'd see like the wood ones with like the kind of burlap sack fabric grill covers. But these were not them. They were, like black ones, but they had some weight to them, which, when it comes to receivers and speakers, if they're heavy, they're usually pretty good. But they were like around $40 or something like that. So I kind of passed and I walked on. I was going to go meet back up with the little kidlet. And then I was like, well, let me go back and look at the model numbers on them. Maybe there's something good. Maybe I can like look them up on the internet on my phone, or post into one of those various online stereo groups of which I'm a member. And as I was walking back to the electronics section, specifically the speaker section, something catches my eye, kind of lower down and to the right. And they looked a little something like this. Now, for those of you in the know, you'll know that these are the realistic Minimus 7 speakers, even though these did not have the label on the back. It usually has like the exact model number and whether it was manufactured in Japan or Korea, or I think Malaysia might be the third country of origin. And supposedly the ones from Japan are the best ones, but these don't have the sticker, so I don't know for sure. But I did see that. I was like, oh my god, those look like the Minimus 7s. Now, they were kind of far away and kind of down, so I just sort of saw them like that. And then I picked them up and I saw the realistic badge on them and was like, oh my gosh, Becky, look at her woofers. They're so big. Yeah, Minimus 7 speakers. Kind of blew my mind. These are something I've been looking for about a year. I remember seeing them like on Facebook Marketplace about a year ago, and they were around like $60-$70. I didn't know anything about them at the time, and people online were like, yeah, no, that's a great price for them. You should get them. Those things kick ass. And then they were gone. So I didn't get them. And, then I'd seen people in the past year posting about how great Minimus 7 speakers were whenever somebody would say something about them. And I'd look them up on eBay, and they'd be like around, $50-$60 plus like another $40 for shipping, because these little shits are heavy. They are. They're about 4.5, 5 pounds, kind of feels like, which, I don't know, for something this small, that's some weight to them. But yeah, so I never got a pair. Never saw them. Then here I was seeing them. And I was like, all right, well, with all the other stereo stuff that they have here that's kind of appropriately priced, these will probably be like around $40-$50. And I think I had like 40 on me. And that was like kind of that was my allowance that I was giving myself. And I look, and there was a sticker on top, which I don't have anymore. $14.99. Now, like I said a second ago, remember they had some other stuff that was appropriately priced. So I was like, all right, either they do not know what they have, or there's something wrong with these and they don't work completely. There was some speaker wire attached to both speakers. So I was like, okay, well, let's plug them into one of these $80-$90 receivers that they got for sale over there. But I didn't want to put them down and like hook up a receiver because the receivers weren't even plugged in or anything, and they were kind of over there. So, because I was like, if I put them down, someone else like me might come by, see them, scoop them on up. So I grabbed the speakers and went to go find my kid. I'm walking around with these things, and the place is pretty big, and it's kind of packed, and the place is usually always packed. The parking lot's always full. So I find her, and I'm like, all right, I need you to come test these out. Are you cool with that? And being like a tween girl, usually would expect a response to be, oh, whatever. Okay, it's just that bad. But for one thing, she doesn't talk like that. And for another, she knows that I'm into this stuff. And she's actually a pretty cool kid. So she comes on over and grab a receiver, plug it all in, and hook up the speakers to it. Click on the power button. Click it again. I'm not hearing anything. Start getting nervous, start sweating, start getting the shakes. But then I realize there's another receiver there. So I swap them out. I'm like, can you hold these again? She says, yeah, Dad, whatever. It's not that bad. And I hook them up. And sweet, beautiful music starts pouring out. Because the other receiver, I think it did not have an antenna hooked up to it. But the second one did. So I got to pull in some stations, listen to the jams, and these little things kicked all sorts of butt. I was very happy and very surprised. And that happiness and surprise was able to offset the weight of these things because I was there also to let her shop around. So we were there for another half an hour. And I'm just holding these speakers. And, all 4 to 5 pounds doesn't sound like much, especially to a big, strong guy like myself. It kind of starts getting heavy after a while. Like, if you think about, old forms of torture or just parental punishment back in what the kids call the day, when you'd have to kneel and rice and hold a couple of books. And it's like, oh, it's just a couple of books. But then after a while, starts getting heavier, your arms start shaking, and yeah, that was kind of going on. I was like, yeah, these are kind of starting to feel Newton's laws of gravity weighing down on it. And before you say, well, you must be a little sissy man, I submit this to you to consider, because I remember when I was a kid watching Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mr. Universe himself, and seeing some behind-the-scenes footage where he was talking about how heavy the sword was that he was using. It was like a 10-pound sword. So this is like a 9 or 10-pound sword. And, I know Arnold and I do share similar physiques. But yeah, so this was kind of starting to feel the weight of these speakers. But it was cool. I got home, plugged them in, cranked them up, and they sound amazing, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I think I do have some clips of the sound recorded, and even kind of comparing them to these JBL tower speakers. Not tower speakers, they're bookshelf speakers, you fool. Thank you. And when you switch them back and forth between the two, you'll notice a difference. But, dude, you could fit 4 of these on top of just one of these bookshelf speakers. And, height-wise, the JBLs are like 10 times the size, or 8 times the size, 7.5 times. I don't know. A lot of times the size of these little speakers. So consider that. And consider that these things were made from like the 70s to the 90s. So we'll split the difference and say this is from the 80s. So comparing it to speakers that were made 30-something years ago, maybe more. That's pretty cool. I know you can get like a JBL flip little thing, but that's not what this is. So take that in consideration. And also the fact that when I was holding the microphone up to the speaker, especially when switching to the JBL, it's kind of closer to the tweeter, so it's going to sound a little tinnier than it should. And also it was recorded on the phone, so cut me some slack. But I'm just saying, the Realistic Minimus 7 speaker from Radio Shack, they sound great. They sound amazing. We'll kick the demonstration over so you can sort of hear what it sounds like through a tiny microphone plugged into an iPhone, and sort of make a judgment for yourself, or just something to kind of fill time. Unless I cut it because I don't have enough storage to put that. Well, let's see where the video takes us, boys and girls. All right? All right. Taste test time. All right, so here's the speaker, and I'm holding this camera with one hand and my microphone with the other hand, and then I need to turn on some royalty-free music with my other hand, so the sound might get a little wonky for a second, but here goes. Sorry, had a bit of an issue with pausing it. So there you go. Hopefully that translated well to a handheld microphone plugged into a phone. Alright, so I'll be switching back and forth between the two speakers, and you'll be able to tell the difference. So yeah, you can hear a difference when you put the two next to each other and compare it. But I mean, this is a 4x8 speaker, and that's the case. I mean, the woofer and tweeter are infinitely smaller than that. Not infinitely, but I mean, what's that, like a 3-4 inch woofer and like a 1-inch tweeter? And I mean, this is the size difference between the two speakers. I mean, you can fit like 4 of these just on top of this JBL. And I mean, it's JBL. That is their thing, is speakers. Realistic, I mean, they do make some great speakers like the Optimus, the Novas, and even these Minimus 7s. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to get that same sound. But for what it is, dude, that's pretty good. Woo! Wasn't that great? Yes, it was. So I hope you enjoyed this demonstration and ramble of the Realistic Minimus 7 tiny speaker. See, look how small it is compared to my dumb big head. From Radio Shack. The speaker, not my big dumb head. So if you see a pair out there, pick them up. Give them a try. They're great. There is a modification you can make to them where you swap out a capacitor for a better one. Maybe I'll try that. It seems like it might be within my technical wheelhouse. I'm not a big tech guy, but I have a little bit of skills. Kind of like when it comes to cars, I can change my oil. I can change my brakes. If I had to, might be able to rebuild a carburetor, but probably not. But I ain't rebuilding any engines anytime soon. And I think this, swapping out a capacitor might be akin to changing your oil or changing your brake pads. If I ever do that, I'll let you know how it turns out. In the meantime, thanks for tuning in and have a blessed day.